All right, so sorry everyone. But yeah, I'm back. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. No, thank you, Manda, for the rescue. All right, yes. Good evening once more. So as I was saying, we are at the final business acumen session for the year. So it's quite an exciting one, this one, because as has always been the theme of our business acumen session, it's really just about not only expanding your business acumen, your commercial awareness, but it's really to get connected with some of the industry leaders and entrepreneurs that are really shaping the industry, that are really pioneering some of the world-class industry in our local markets. So this evening, we have a very, very special guest. So Ndia was also one of our lecturers about 2 years or so. And I'm sure for some of you, you might have seen her in some of our MEF CTA videos. And by the way, that was part-time, even at the, when she was doing it for us. Alongside, she was building this mega company called Eva Electric. So from there, we started talking and really got to take quite a lot of interest in what she was doing. And it was then quite fitting this year when we then spoke about just partnering to bring you her organization as one of the case study for this year. So EGM, Green Mobility, the case study 3 that you've just written was based on Eva Electric. So you will have seen that some of the details we didn't change, like who was the CEO of the company. And I'm sure some of the names there, she will just also share some background around them. But without going too much into detail, I would like for you to, I would like to introduce her and give her the platform to take over from here. Good evening, dear.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Rendani. Thanks for that introduction.
Great, well deserved. So looking forward to the engagement. You may take over from here.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much for making the time to join this this session. I think, we do have long days, so for you to have made the time is really an honor. And again, thank you, Rendani and the Indunamu team for inviting me. I have worked for Indunamu before, and so it is a pleasure to come back as somebody giving this business acumen session. So without wasting any time, let me maybe just tell you a little bit about myself and my journey to get here, and then we will go into the story of Eva Electric, which is the business that we are currently running right now. So I did my BCom in Accounting Sciences at the University of Pretoria. I did my honors at UNISA, and I qualified as a chartered accountant in 2010. I was trained at Deloitte, so I did Deloitte articles, and I was one of those at the end of the 3 years that couldn't wait to get away. Auditing was not necessarily something that I would stick to for the long time, but I really, really enjoyed my time at Deloitte, and I did learn a lot from the clients that I audited. So 2010, I finished my articles. I can't believe it's actually 13 years now. And I then went into deal making. So I was a senior deal maker at the Industrial Development Corporation for about 7 years. So I started my career at the Industrial Development Corporation as a business analyst in chemicals and allied industries. So that was the division that looked at plastic products as well as anything that had input into infrastructure. So it was bricks, sand mining, and that sort of thing. I then moved into a division called heavy manufacturing, which focused on wood and paper, as well as also inputs into infrastructure. And then when I left the IDC, I was a senior deal maker in the agro-processing unit. So that was really 7 years that I think really sparked my interest in entrepreneurship, even though I had other businesses, even while I was doing articles, kind of running side businesses, selling leather goods. At some point, I had an events company called Shorter Events. At some point, we had a venue in Midrand, and we were doing baby showers and things like that. So just throughout my life, just kind of running this and that, doing this and that while I was still in corporate. And then I left IDC to go to Momentum Metropolitan, where I was in the mergers and acquisitions unit. I only spent just under 2 years there. It was when I was at Momentum that myself and two partners, and I will tell you more about them when I go into the Everlectric conversation, we decided we were going to start Everlectric. But firstly, we thought, because we are accountants, because we had different experience, having left articles, these were people that I did articles with, we will start with a consulting business first. And so we do run a management consulting business that my business partner actually runs. 90% of his time he spends there. I spend 99% of my time in Everlectric, but kind of split it that way. But we've got a consulting business that does management consulting, innovation consulting, and a bit of mergers and acquisitions. And that was the business that was keeping the lights on, really, from an income point of view, because it's got contracts that are running, while we were pushing the venture, which is Everlectric. So perhaps also when I talk about Everlectric, I'm going to share a little bit about our fundraising journey and why it turned out to be quite a good idea to have had something that was because ventures can take a long time to get off the ground. And also partly I did do some work lecturing at Njinamu, just because there was that need to sort of keep the lights on and keep learning and keep growing. But anyway, we have been in this business for the last 3 years. Let me say I've been full-time in this business for the last 3 years, going on 3 years now. But this business is something that we conceptualized over, a year or two prior to actually starting or being full-time in the business. We started conceptualizing it and doing research into electric mobility. So what we do at Everlectric, just in a nutshell, because I want to start by showing you a video, our fleet or the vehicles that we provide to fleets running in the actual DSV fleet. It's a 5-minute video. Quite quickly, and I think you'll have a good idea of what we do. But what we do is we are an electric vehicle as a service business. What that means is that, we provide electric vehicles on a full maintenance lease to clients in the logistics sector or last mile delivery clients, which means that we provide them with the vehicle, the charging infrastructure, we do all the maintenance on the vehicle, and we say that we provide all the fuel, which is the electricity that they need to run their business, and we also provide the insurance for it. And you might ask, but what is the rationale of putting the business case together in that way? So maybe if I quickly go into where this idea came from, and then I will show you the video. The idea happened, so one of my business partners was traveling overseas, specifically in Norway, and he realized that there were actually a lot of electric vehicles running in other parts of the world. We as I traveled as well, when he came back and he said this to us, that, look at electric mobility, look at what Elon Musk is doing, for instance, it sparked that interest. And I think all three partners, we started doing the research for ourselves. So we actually realized that in other markets, in other countries, the electric mobility has run quite far talk of electric vehicles being manufactured locally. There was the Nissan Leaf back in the day, and clients or rather corporates were coming out to say that they would like to decarbonize. They are thinking of their ESG commitments, and that was becoming the buzzword. And they were saying that they're looking for solutions that reduce their carbon emissions. And when we heard that, combined with the fact that we had seen these sort of solutions running elsewhere in the world, we thought this is an opportunity that we could bring into South Africa. So I want to show you a video that is our fleet running in the Woolworths fleet, which is one of the clients that we service. Rendani, please just let me know if you can hear the video. I'm just gonna play it now.
41 fully electric panel vans to their delivery fleet as they work towards bold sustainability goals, ambitions that they've set.
I just want to make sure, can you guys hear?
Yes, we can.
Are you guys able to hear the video?
Yes, we can hear it.
Okay, thank you.
Ambitions that they've set out for themselves. Now, Kuchle visited DSV's warehouse to learn more about these newly launched electric vans. Well, let's take a look.
Since June 2022, Woolworths has trialed 2 online electric delivery panel vans. They are now expanding on the initiative, making them one of the first South African retailers to embark on this extensive rollout of DSV's electric panel vans, delivering customers' online purchases across Gauteng, Durban, and in Cape Town. Now, we are here at DSV's warehouse in Johannesburg to learn more about these incredible electric vehicles. At Electric, you believe that the South African logistics sector is ready to transition into a cleaner and more sustainable future. Talk to us about how these panel vans was that transitional process.
Logistics industry is seen as wanting to decarbonize their fleet, but until now there were no solutions in South Africa for them to be able to do that. And so it's important to note that our electric vehicles are powered by renewable electricity and they emit no emissions.
Within our Woolworths sustainability journey, which we call our good business journey, we've set ourselves some big, bold goals, one of which is to have zero net carbon emissions by the year 2040. So from an online perspective, we've seen online sales at Woolies grow exponentially over the last few years. So we really had to address the emissions from delivery vehicles. Over the last 2 years, we've tested and trialed electric vehicles in both Joburg and Cape Town to ensure they're robust enough, that we have enough charge to do our full day of deliveries. I'm really proud to say that we've now operationalized this trial and we've launched electric vehicles in up to 40% of our fleet, powered by the sun.
I've been driving for Woolies for the past 5 years now, and I've been driving this EV. It's my second week now. To fill up this one, you just start and go. It's nice and quiet. There's no sound here. It's like you are driving a SUV when you drive this vehicle, and I love the fact that each and every time when I pass on the road, people are just looking at me because I'm the first one to drive an electric vehicle.
We are able to optimize our charging between the sun or off the grid. We schedule around load shedding. When you know that electricity will be off between this and this time, we schedule around that. And so far, we've had 100% operational uptime.
And how long do they run for with a fully charged battery?
A fully charged vehicle can take you 300 kilometers. And that we have seen with our clients that it is quite enough for urban driving because none of them are doing more than 300 kilometers.
Now I'm going to ask you to take us through some of the features of these electric vehicles.
They are one-ton panel van. They have got 5 cube of space, of volumetric space at the back. They are manufactured from bottom-up electric, which means not retrofitted. That's where you get the most efficiency out of an electric vehicle. Important to note also, we needed to make sure they're also quite reliable. We've been running them in fleets in South Africa for the past 24 months. We have had 100% operational uptime. We haven't had major maintenance issues with this vehicle.
Our fleet now stands at over 40 vehicles based in Joburg and Cape Town, with more to roll out in Durban and other areas of South Africa in the coming months.
Okay, so there's no engine. So what is in here?
So let me not scare you because this is going to come right off. So let me put this one down. What you're going to find in here, which actually just runs the light, your window washers, etc. You're going to find a management itself, the battery that is at the bottom on the chassis of the vehicle, and you're going to get a few lifts which are under liquid, etc. So this car is a whole lot less parts than you would find in a converter.
Other than a reduction in carbon emissions, we hope to be a leader in sustainable logistics and really hope that by setting an example, we can see more change with regard to sustainable technology.
With the launch of these DSV electric panel vans, we are so thrilled to be a part of this journey, moving towards a better, sustainable future.
Well, they are charged for change, and that is the
And so that is it. That is just a video of the Woolies into the presentation. Okay, I'm back now. I was just having trouble with my network. We've been load shed, but the electricity will be back now at 8 o'clock, so it should be better. Please note, you can really stop me at any time while I'm giving this presentation, but please just shout because I'm presenting, so I won't be able to see your hand, or maybe someone from the team can just let me know if there's a hand up. But I've already introduced myself, and so I'm going to give you the overview of Electric. So Electric is co-founded by myself. You can see me right there in the front, together with Paul Plummer on the right of the screen and Wesley van der Walt, all accountants. We all met at Deloitte while doing our articles many years ago. And we all went into different fields, But what we do now in the business is that Mr. Paul Plummer, who is on the right, is actually the CFO of the business, and he is also responsible for the marketing and the sales for the business. I am the CEO, also responsible for fundraising, because as I told you, my background is in deal making. And Wesley is a chief operating officer. He was one of the founders of the freedom of movement leather goods stores that you might know. So quite a builder of businesses. And so the team came together in that way to be founders of Electric. You've already seen that video. But I want to just say that as a precursor, Electric, we feel that we are aligned with a couple of global mega trends. So there is a trend towards decarbonization. A lot of industries, actually all industries, are being pushed to reduce their carbon emissions. And so there is a pressure to find viable ways to decarbonize fleets. And logistics is definitely one of them. And it is one that we chose that we would decarbonize. And then secondly, it is a mega trend for electric mobility. I did mention at the beginning when I started that back in the day, we heard about the Nissan Leaf, and we heard about the early days of electric mobility in South Africa, if I have to be specific. But if you look at battery technology right now, if you look at where technology has gone globally, we were in China just in May now, and just to see how far ahead electric mobility technology has improved, it just shows us that we are on a mega trend, but it also reminds us that South Africa has really lagged behind, and this wave is coming to South Africa. And I will share with you why we believe that South Africa has to follow suit as well. Also, there is a trend towards assets as a service. So this is where there is an increasing shift to a shared asset economy. By that, I mean that, if you look at the Airbnb model and the Uber model, where people no longer have to own the asset. I, as the business, can own the asset, and it is shared and used in whatever industry that I choose. So the Electric model is exactly that. We put up charging infrastructure, and our clients are able to charge on that charging infrastructure. And it can be any client that charges on our charger. But definitely you and I, one day when there's mass adoption of electric mobility in South Africa, and that day is coming sooner than we actually think, then we will be able to use those chargers and the chargers of others. There are other charger providers in South Africa that are available, and that number is growing. And also there's the underlying issue is sustainability. You would have heard in the video, corporates are acutely aware of their ESG commitments. So the question might be, why has South Africa lagged behind? Why is it that it's taken so long for adoption in South Africa? There's a couple of issues that have been the reason. And we call it the chicken and egg situation, because every time when we go to a client and we say, a new client, we want to bring electric mobility, there are specific questions that they will ask them. Firstly, they'll ask us about load shedding, and they will ask us about, where am I going to charge? These electric vehicles are very expensive, and those are the current limitations in South Africa. And we have put together our solution, our business model, in such a way that we overcome these limitations that currently exist in South Africa. So the first limitation is that lack of EV availability in South Africa. So rewind to about 4 or 5 years ago, when we were conceptualizing this business, we went to every single manufacturer in South Africa, or rather, that are represented in South Africa. And with electric option of a commercial panel van, for instance, which is the one that you saw on the video, one that you are running in your right-hand markets. So, you know, Europe, the parts of Europe that use that drive on the right hand, and well, that are right-hand drives. And the answer was no. There is no market for electric mobility in South Africa. But you would have realized that now every single OEM in South Africa, or at least most of them, have brought out electric options. So there was a lack of EV availability. There's still a lack of EV availability in the commercial type of vehicles. But if you are looking for a BMW iX, or, you know, an i3, or even an Audi e-tron, you will find those vehicles available in South Africa. And there are even cheaper options coming that have launched. Haval or GWM, Great Wall Motors, have launched the Aura, which is a hatchback. So definitely there are vehicles that have been introduced into the South African market now, which tells you something about where the industry is going. But how we solve this problem is that we went to China. We went to the 4th largest manufacturer of electric vehicles globally. They are called SAIC Maxus, and we procured a panel van that is currently running in Europe. They've got thousands of them running in the UK and also in Norway and other markets. And we brought that into South Africa, and those were the vehicles that we went with. Running those heavy proof of concept that we ran 5 of these vehicles in fleets, running a proof of concept for the last 24 months, and we have now commercially scaled. And in the video, the words represent. Sorry, I was just cut off there for a moment, but I'm back now. So you would have heard the lady on the video saying they've got 40 on the road. That's just Woolworths, but our total vehicles on the road now are just about 60 vehicles, about 65 vehicles, sorry, running on South African roads right now. So it's telling you something about the growth of the industry, but also the growth of EV electric. And then there's infrastructure limitations. So they will tell you, people will say, but where am I going to charge this vehicle? And if we had to, again, rewind this movie about 3 years ago, there were not nearly as many chargers as they are right now. And right now, the last time I checked the stats, we are sitting at about 300 chargers countrywide, just under 300 countrywide, between different providers of charging infrastructure. So, and we are one of the charging infrastructure providers because we provide a full maintenance lease solution. So we provide charging for our clients, both DC fast charging, which is the fast charger, and I'll talk more about it later, but also the AC charging, which requires 4 to 5 hours to charge a vehicle. And then there's the issue of grid stability and load shedding, always a question that we asked. And so we've got 3 sort of things that we do in order to solve the load shedding problem for our clients. Firstly, as far as possible, we charge off our clients' solar installations. But here's the conundrum is that these vehicles are mostly out during the day when the sun is shining, and they are parked at night in the warehouses of our clients. And so charging of solar is not always possible. So where it's not possible to charge off their solar, we schedule around load shedding. So we often say that it's a lot like your cell phone. So you and I'm being load shed right now, but I still have my phone at 80% of charge, because when you know what time there will be load shedding, you schedule around that. And I will tell you more about the intelligence that we have built into the EV electric offering, in that we've got an Internet of Things layer that is connected to our vehicles and our chargers, and we are connected to the load shedding schedule. And because of that, it's not a manual process to let our users know when load shedding will be. And then thirdly, our vehicles are charged. I did mention that we've got DC fast chargers, but we also have AC chargers, which are the slower chargers. Those chargers need to fill your car up in between 4 and 5 hours. If you think about it, let's say a Woolworths driver, for instance, they will come back from their deliveries at around, let's say, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. And they will leave again to go do deliveries the next morning, let's say at 7 o'clock. Between 5 when they park that car to 7 when they need to leave, you've got 13, 14 hours where the vehicle is parked in a warehouse. So basically what we have then done is that with the intelligence that I'm talking about that we've built, having an IoT layer and a driver-facing app and all of those things, we are then able to remotely start charging when there is when there's availability of electricity within that 14 hours that the car is parked overnight. And then there's also the issue of prohibitive costs and expenses. So until now in South Africa, and actually South Africa is one of 2 countries globally that still charge a punitive import tax on electric mobility. So South Africa sees the electric vehicles that are imported as luxury goods, and they charge us up to 42% in import duties. And so that brings up the price of an electric vehicle. But we've got we've got faith to believe that that price, those import duties will come down. But even having said that, even at the worst of the import duties, even at the highest cost of electric vehicles right now in South Africa, which is not sustainable, by the way, this electric mobility is still cheaper to run. Our clients are realizing between 10 and 20% savings. So some are at parity, some are within the 20%, between 1 and 20% saving. But it is on a total cost of ownership level. That's how if you take the all-in cost of running a vehicle, an internal combustion engine, this is including everything, the cost of it, the financing of it, the maintenance, insurance, all of it, and you compare it to the same cost of running an electric vehicle, it is still cheaper. And again, there were limited viable options for reducing carbon emissions. So I've already said that there's a chicken and egg situation with electric mobility in South Africa. But even with that, our clients are still seeing savings. So 2 years ago, we started running a proof of concept with a couple of clients in South Africa. Those were early adopters who were interested in decarbonizing their fleets, and they decided to take 1 or 2 vehicles and test them in their fleets. We ran that proof of concept for 24 months. In that time, including, and in May, we then started the commercial scaling of this business with the likes of Woolies and them, and other clients that will come out publicly. I'm talking about Woolworths and DSV because they have come out publicly, but some of the other clients will be coming out publicly, and you will see that those articles. But we are now running close to 60 vehicles, and by the end of this year, we will have about 100 vehicles on South African roads. So up to so far, at the worst of load shedding, with all the issues that you can think of as being deterrents in South Africa, we've done close to 1 million kilometers on South African roads. We have been charging on the electric charging network. We've been running for, when I did this presentation, it was 23 months. We are now 24 months because we started in August 2021. And our clients, most importantly, because this is the number that they're looking at, they have a saving, carbon emission saving of 1 ton per vehicle per month. And I will come back to this because somebody might say, but you charge off a dirty grid, how can you say that your clients are saving on carbon emissions? But maybe let me actually talk about that quickly right now before I move on to the next thing. So yes, indeed, we do charge off solar. Like I've said, it's not always possible to charge off solar, but even charging off the grid, we at the moment, before legislation for wheeling for those who don't know, is when there will be legislation that will be put through that will allow people or off-takers to buy renewable energy directly from, let's say, a solar farm or a wind farm or things like that. But right now, we're not able to do that in South Africa. It can be done elsewhere in the world. In the absence of that legislation, we purchase what we call renewable energy certificates, which means for every kilowatt hour that I charge, I use of the Eskom grid, which you would say is dirty because it's coal powered. I buy a renewable energy certificate to offset the dirty power that I use. And that is an in the meantime solution to ensure that my clients have a green solution. And imagine Woolworths cannot go out there and say that they are saving on carbon if they really are not, and those things are audited. So we purchase renewable energy certificates in the meantime, and going forward, we will be able to wheel electricity, which means we will be able to buy in the megawatts of renewable electricity for our charging network. And then the other thing is that in the 24 months that we've been... Is there a question? Sorry, I'm not able to see hands.
Yes. Hi, I'm not sure if I'm also disturbing. Is it okay to just jump in and ask questions without raising our hand first?
Yes.
Okay, lovely presentation, and it's so exciting to hear you speak about it. But I have a question, two questions. The first one would be, like, the logistics.
Go ahead. Sorry, I was cut off again there. Yeah, please go ahead.
So the first question would be, the logistics industry, it's very traditional and very much male dominated industry. So I would like to find out, like, what are the challenges that you faced and how have you overcome them? Because there is a business case for EV as a service. And then the second one, I would really love to know how you guys got started in terms of funding. Did you guys have seed rounds, and of that, how much were you able to raise? And yeah.
Thank you so much for those questions. I will touch on our financing a bit later in the presentation, right at the end. But let me maybe answer your question about the logistics industry being traditional and very male dominated. That is very, very much true. So a lot of the players in the logistics industry are male. And I have to say that at first you are acutely aware of the fact that you're a woman and you are not historically, I was not historically from the logistics industry. Everything that I'm telling you now is things that I've learned over the years that we've been running in fleets and that we've been researching. But there's something that I've learned about your a viable business solution, and you can prove it. It might take, like for our case, it took into the story because I speak up as one logistics provider. So let me say Woolworths. It took the likes of a Woolworths like adopting the solution beyond there, but I think it was just for a few seconds. Beyond the fact that a woman selling it to them, yes, I do have male business partners. The matter is that we were bringing them a solution that they could see would solve a problem that they had. And so, to your question about how do we then, just kind of deal with the fact that you're a new entrant. In my case, I'm a woman. I'm not pale, I'm dark, and all of those things. The issue is if you bring a solution that makes sense to your client, there is no way that they will not listen to you. And yes, it might take time, but eventually they see that it makes sense. I'm not sure if you can see. Yeah, you can see my screen now, and I will then come back to the fundraising part and who it was that we fundraised with.
Hello there. Hello.
Okay, so I was still touching. And so what is our value proposition in a nutshell? We say to our clients, there's no upfront charger investment.
Hello there.
There is. Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can
Do you have
hear
a question?
you. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Yeah, you've got a question?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to say that eventually you're gonna be a billionaire. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I will. If I was in church, I would say I receive. But I think at this point, when you are so much into a startup and starting something from scratch, and I think even the people who founded the school that you're attending now will tell you that when you start these things and you're in the thick of these things, you are really not thinking about being a billionaire. You are thinking about solving the problem and solving the next problem. So my next problem is I need to raise more funding. My next problem is, am I employing the right people because my team is growing? The next problem is when I grow and I get to 200,000 vehicles, will my system be strong enough to handle? And it's thinking of the share price but thank for me of it. So we package this solution in a way that is a full maintenance with everything included. Let to everyone that says, but how do you sell this solution to your fleet customer? I go to my fleet customer and I say, I'm not saying that you must transition your entire fleet into electric. For instance, guys, some of our clients have fleets in the thousands of vehicles. We say to them, you don't have to give me a contract for all 1,000 of your vehicles right now. There are 3 things that have to stack up before you decide which one of your vehicles you move electric. Firstly, operationally, if one doesn't stand up, the pot falls over. So we say the 3 legs of a Poiki pot, operationally it must stand up, which means that if my logistics customer was able to do 300 kilometers a day in a normal combustion engine vehicle, they should be able to do the same in the electric vehicle that Electric provides them. Secondly, financially, it must make sense. So I say to them, I don't want you to transition your fleet just because you've got pressure from your global companies to go green, but I want you to go electric when you know you are either at parity with what you're currently paying or you are going to save money, because that makes sense. And yes, there are still some clients who will say, I will pay a bit of a premium because green is important to me and I have to make sure that the solution is green or my fleet is green. But for most of it, we say only transition the vehicles that you know that will bring you at parity or it will save you money. And then thirdly, the third leg of the Poiki is you must make sure that technically the product that you bring or that your client is using is astute. It's technically astute. And I said in the beginning that we went to the fourth. Hey, hello?
Sorry.
I'm here.
Are you sharing? Sorry.
Yes, I can hear you. Yes, I'm presenting. Could you not see the presentation?
No, I can't see anything. Maybe it's my network.
Okay, there we go.
There we go.
Are you seeing the screen now?
Are you seeing the screen now?
Nothing, dear. This load shedding is dealing with you, eh?
Is dealing with you,
No screen. Okay, let me.
Okay, let me.
And there's a feedback. I
And
think
there's a feedback.
it's your connection, Matumi. Yeah. Okay, there we go. Can someone just confirm that you can see my screen?
Confirmed.
Perfect. Load shedding is dealing with me, but can you see my screen now?
Yes, we can.
Yes, dear.
Perfect, thank you. So I was still talking about the third leg of the Boiki, which is technically, so we went to the fourth largest manufacturer of vehicles globally, which is Maxus. It's the fourth after Tesla, BYD, VW, and Maxus is the fourth. They make 7 million vehicles. This is internal combustion engine vehicles as well as EVs. 7 million vehicles per annum for all the OEMs that are represented in China. So the Audis and the VWs, they are the contract manufacturer for them in China. And if I have to give you context, South Africa, every year across all manufacturers of vehicles, we manufacture just over 600,000 vehicles a year. So these guys are 100 times bigger than all the vehicles that we manufacture in South Africa annually. And the reason why we went with them is because we understood that you need, if you are going to go to market with a new product or a new technology as we have, you do not want to give people the excuse to say, but their product is not technically astute. So I spoke about the intelligence that we have built into the Electric solution. We have an integrated IoT technology. We've got a driver-facing application. It tells my driver where the next charger is. It tells them if they're running out of range. So the app, it sends a push notification to say, driver Y, you are too far from a charger. You are, let's say, 100 kilometers from home. You only have 50 kilometers left or whatever of battery in your vehicle. Because you can't get home to your home charger, there is another supplier's charger down the road, 10 left, go here, and you can charge there. So it will tell my driver if they need to do a top-up charge. It will tell them if there's a charger that is owned by Electric in their vicinity. It will tell them which charger is available at the moment so that they don't have to go and sit there and wait. Remember, my client is logistics. So if you've ordered Woolies online, you don't want to hear that your bread is late because the guy ran out of charge. So we ensure that our vehicles are fully charged, and when they are not, we can send them to chargers that are available. And then secondly, we are connected to our chargers remotely and to our vehicles remotely, which means because of these vehicles, and I just wish that one day you can come around to our offices and test drive one of these vehicles. They have so much torque, so much power, because they don't lose energy due to, let's say, sound and things like that, like an internal combustion would. So our 1-ton panel vans that we are running in these fleets, they are like GTIs. I nearly said VR6, which would have told you how old we are. But I usually call it the Vrupas of pedal vans, because they are extremely fast. So what we are able to do remotely is that we are able to pull back the power in some of these vehicles, like where we see that the drivers are harshly taking off, because that finishes your tires. And so as a logistics supplier, you need to sort of manage for those kind of things as well. So we're able to throttle and give them 60% power. We are able to start their charging remotely, which means that when my driver arrives back at their warehouses, all they need to do is to connect the vehicle to the charger. They don't need to start the charging, because I don't want these vehicles to be charging at the peak of rates. Eskom rates, let's say between 5 and 8, for instance, are high, especially in winter. But I want to start charging when it's midnight and when rates are at their lowest, so that I also control the costs in the back end for the business, but the client doesn't have to start the charging because I can do it remotely. And what you are seeing now on the screen is the electric charging infrastructure. Some of that charging infrastructure, the left one being Cape Town, the right one being Gauteng. Some of it has been put down already, but a lot of it is planned the next year, and for the next coming years. And then the vehicles, I'm almost at the end. These are the vehicles that we've got on offer. This is a 1-ton panel van. That's the one that you saw, which is what some clients will put a box at the back of it, and they will run it in their fleet. This is the first electric bakkie in South Africa. You guys are really some of the first people to see it. It's only going to be launched next week. So yeah, when you see it in the public domain, please holla. And we also bring in the GS, which but from Maxus, but these ones are from JSC Motors. It's a 4-ton truck, which we are running in some of our fleet currently. And we are seeing tremendous growth coming out of this 4-ton truck. And also for you and I, and for also other clients who have fleets of hatchbacks or even sedans, we've got the GWM Aura, which is a spunky new car that has just been launched a month ago, but we also provide it on the Electric network, which means we'll provide this vehicle together with the charging, together with the maintenance, without our clients having to worry about where they're going to charge these vehicles, etc., and we'll manage it in their fleet. We've also brought in or customized one of our vehicles to become a refrigerated unit. This is a unit that is run by some of the health pharmaceutical companies that need to keep a cold chain, by some food deliveries who need to keep, let's say, temperatures below a certain degrees. This is the refrigerated unit EV in South Africa, the first one. So yeah, I talked about the significant the significant savings that are available. But I think in closing, I want to talk about our fundraising journey as well, of how we got to fundraise for this business, how we built capital for the business. It definitely was not easy. And I think, I can't remember who it was, the first lady who spoke, and she was asking, how did we get to do it? So firstly, there was a lot of the founders kind of putting our life savings into the business to start. I'm talking about the initial research, the initial travels, the initial, bringing in some of the items that needed to be brought in. It was from the founders. And then eventually, after about 18 months of fundraising, of talking to different funders, or venture capital, private equity, banks in South Africa, we then, after about 18 months, raised our seed financing. And maybe just to share in terms of how many presentations or how many no's we got to get the first seed financing, just for your interest, so that, one day if you do start something and you get a few no's, that you don't give up and think it's not going to work. I think I stopped counting when we got the 25th 25 no's. This is basically venture capital, PE, family offices saying you are not within our mandate. We don't see this fitting into our investment criteria. But finally, we did meet an investor who saw what we were doing, a seed financier, and their name is Acumen Group Holdings. It is all in the public domain. The amount is undisclosed, as you can imagine with transactions of this nature. So an undisclosed amount of seed capital, enough to bring 5 vehicles into the country, together with the pennies from the co-founders. And we ran this business for 24 months with that funding. And then we had a next round of funding, and we were funded by an investment house called Enreach, based in Pretoria. And they are also a shareholder in the business now. And so our equity rounds, 2 rounds of equity, were fully subscribed between those 2 financiers. And currently, where we are with the commercial offtake is that we are raising asset-backed financing from the commercial banks, from the development finance institutions, and I would safely say that I probably spend 50% of my time just as the team, with the sales team kind of going to sell, but the other 50% we spend fundraising. And that's just because at this point in our business, we need to be growing the business. And so we need to find the right partners to fund the business. So yes, that is all from myself. I'm going to open up for specific questions if you might have them. But thank you so much for listening to my presentation.
Yes, indeed. Can I have a question?
Yes, please, go ahead.
In the case study there, there was that part of office of the president. Was that part fiction?
in the case study.
Yes, they said the contract, state of presidency, national treasury, they want the ministers to drive your cars. So was that fiction?
That was fiction, and a bit of a dream from myself specifically. I am actively selling into the government, because what I believe is we must lead by example. There's a lot of talk about decarbonizing. The government is not, the ministers are not driving our vehicles yet, but I believe that there will be a time that they will. So it was fiction, but it was hope. Thanks. I'm going to take the hands as I see them. The first one is Les. Please go ahead.
Hi, India.
Yes.
Good evening, colleagues. India, mine is similar to the fundraising one, but I think more from a paradigm perspective. I mean, we're in sub-Saharan Africa, and especially if you started this, let's say, around the time that you did, EV is still something that's been rolled out globally. It's still not yet a mature, at least as far as we see it from our side, it's not yet a mature product. So you guys are some of the people that are at the forefront of these sort of things. We hear a lot of these things about technology, be it, if you consider that we're complaining about the last 3 years, 30 years, manufacturing in South Africa has really died. And we say technology gives us the opportunity to leapfrog that, with 3G printing, generative design, all of those technologies that basically can make it seem as if the last 30 years of non-activity didn't happen. From a paradigm perspective, what does it take to truly believe in something like you've done and then actually make it happen in such a way that if I were to sit in Europe and profile you guys and my country is not actioning this, I wouldn't believe that a sub-Saharan company is actually rolling out EVs at the level that you guys are and we're not. So from a paradigm perspective, what does it take to essentially do those sort of things, especially where we don't have a culture in South Africa of adoption of technology at the scale that we do, at the level that we do?
Sure. Sure, that's a very good question. So I think, Les, from now on, you're going to start to realize that South Africa has really lagged behind. So to your question about the paradigm shift, I said that earlier. I was in China in May. In China, and I was going to see our manufacturer as well as visiting, the battery manufacturers. In the first and second quarter of this year, of 2023, 40% of the vehicles that were sold in China were EVs. 40%. That is in a market that manufactures about 7 million vehicles per annum. So that tells you that if I had started this business, let's say in Norway, I would have fit in exactly in what they are doing right now. Our panel vans, the last time I checked, in these European markets, there's thousands of them running in fleets. So it's not to say that the rest of the world is not rolling out EVs. The rest of the world is rolling out EVs at a very fast pace. And the reason for that is that they've got infrastructure that is subsidized by government that they put down. They have legislation that they have developed in their countries that ensure that greener mobility or electric vehicles go ahead. Earlier in the year, again, I was in London in February. If you're going to drive an internal combustion engine into central London, you pay a certain tax because they say they want to reduce the emissions within their city. So do you understand that in our case in South Africa, the reason why we are not adopting is because there is no enabling environment that enables us to do that. But we have to move with the times. Another thing, just finally, Les, to bring it to South Africa, I've already said that if you look at all the OEMs in South Africa, Audi, VW, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, they're all bringing out electric options. Volvo, they all have an electric option, which is something that was not necessarily the case a year or two ago. That has to tell you that something is about to happen in South Africa. You're going to hear of a major legislative change that is currently, we are currently contributing to as players in the industry, that government is going to take out in October of this year. And that will be the game changer for electric mobility in South Africa. I hope I've answered your question, Les. There's so many other hands. I'll come back to you, but let me go to Fane. Yes. Yeah, I'll come back to you if there's still time at the end.
Hi, Dia. Thank you for inspiring me, especially as a female. My question is, when you guys started, was there like fair share in the, like equal share in terms of shareholding? And the second question is, have you experienced where the funders want to take a controlling stake in the entity?
Yes, very, very good question. So let me tell you, when the funders realize that you are onto something, because you have the idea and they have the money, and so, he who pays the piper, makes the tune, like they say, the negotiation that you are going to have to make is, make them understand why you should still be a majority shareholder, because they will want to get a greater share. And it is understandable because they obviously have to do that because of the risk that they are taking into your business. And so that is something that we've had to deal with. But we were very clear from the beginning that we're not just going to take funding for the sake of taking funding. We're not just going to take money because it's money. We are going to go with funders that are strategic. Strategic in that they will give us access to either their clients, to their relationship. So let's say either clients or their relationships, or maybe other investee companies within their stable. Maybe they have relationship with the right government departments. For instance, we were very clear that we needed strategic partnerships or funding from strategic partners as opposed to just taking cash from anywhere. When it comes to, was it equal shareholding or not, as the founders of Electric, we made sure that our structure was set up in such a way that we are able to take advantage of what South Africa is able to provide us in terms of BEE. So you can imagine, to provide into some of these, to be a supplier to some of these clients, you need a certain level of BEE credentials. You need to be set up in a certain way. So we've surely ensured that. And so we are the founders, yes, but in our structure, we also have shareholding of a community trust, for instance, to ensure that not only are we giving back to the communities of, in things that matter to us, but also to ensure that we are set up in such a way that we can be successful in the South African landscape.
Have you at least benefited from one of the strategic partners?
It is an ongoing thing. I would like to believe that it is one of the things that, let's say, it is in a procurement process with our clients. If they say, what's your BE, what's your BE credentials? If I say I'm a level 1 or a level 2, then, obviously your application goes top of pile. So I would like to believe that we have benefited somewhat. I don't believe that we've benefited from that we can benefit from. But over time, I've really learned to be patient, because I understand that the thing that we are doing is so new to everyone that sometimes it takes more than 1 or 2 or 3 conversations to get to, to a final yes. So I'm patient, but I know that we're getting there. Thanks so much.
Keep soaring.
Thank you so much. You also motivating me, because I think our heads are so much into this thing that we don't really actually stop and think how far we have come. Larry, your turn.
Thanks, and yeah, well presented. I think yeah, you really chose the wrong career. You could have gone this career then earlier on in your stage, but yeah. Just have 2 questions. So one is around the currently, are you selling this to corporate clients only? I know you're saying you're targeting government, individuals. Is this available to individuals? So that's the first question around your market. So the next one is around competition. So I'm thinking of driverless cars, or some they call them autonomous cars. Are you guys considering that, or as a competition? Are you considering that as part of maybe a business in future? And is this really a car manufacturing spec, also this driverless cars, or it's actually a tech company? Is it a disruptive technology to car manufacturers, or it's just a tech company? Now I'm talking about the driverless cars.
No, thanks. Those are very good questions. Thanks so much for them. So your first question was, who are we targeting? So currently we are targeting B2B, which is the commercial clients, because we understand that they do a certain number of kilometers every day. They are worried about saving costs. They have in one single purchasing decision. It's not just Ndia making the decision to buy one electric vehicle. These are guys with fleets of vehicles. So I can walk into a meeting having sold nothing and come out with 100 vehicles, so the purchasing decision is much bigger, and they've got muscle. So we're going there. But there is a plan before the end of this year. We will be selling directly to the public, and maybe to touch why we would be able to do that. So we see ourselves not as a vehicle manufacturer or a provider of the Maxus vehicle or anything like that. We see ourselves as an infrastructure provider. We provide charging, we provide all the ancillary items that I've explained to you, but we are able to bring any vehicle from any manufacturer to that network. So you would have seen in my presentation, there's a JSC truck, there's a GWM Aura. All those vehicles are roaming on our, I call it roaming because I see ourselves as, let's say, the Vodacom of electric vehicles. When they started, Vodacom was building towers. They were building the infrastructure in order for you and I to use any handset on that network. You can use a Samsung on the Vodacom network or an iPhone or whatever. So that is who we are. We provide the infrastructure and we roam any vehicle, any type of vehicle on our network. So even if the driverless vehicles do come to South Africa, which I really believe that, yes, it's a disruption to the technology, not so much to the vehicle manufacturers, but rather it is a threat to, let's say, the jobs, for instance, in the B2B to our drivers. Sorry, like someone was saying, load shedding is dealing with me. I don't even know if it's load shedding anymore. But yeah, so the driverless technology, it will come eventually. The Teslas are already, you know, they're already sort of looking into that technology. It might come down the line, but for the South African context, we know what the unemployment sort of figures are sitting at. So thank you for that question. Madume, can I take your hand?
Hi, India. Thanks for the presentation. I must say, you really sparked a bit of curiosity from my side, especially when you're showing the, what do you call this, the test network map, because in my head, I'm already thinking DevOps, like I'm already thinking, how are they deploying this? Yeah, it's been nice, but I have so many questions and I'm just trying to like just cut them to the most important ones. So my first one, right, is I see when you're showing all the various vehicles that you guys are offering or will be offering. So from what I've seen, it's like they're all Chinese. So my question there is like, one, like why the Chinese? And then the second one is around fundraising, right? So the way you explain it sounds like you're taking the transaction capital approach where you pretty much go to like your banks and those, I forgot those institutional. So you have a normal banks and then you have a development banks and then you get funding from those, and then from whatever you get there, then you pretty much, I guess, factor that into buying cars and then somewhere recouping that money through that. So I just wanted to ask, like, are you like in a nutshell, would you say that you've kind of like adopted the transaction capital approach? And then in terms of your product offerings, when you start with your presentation, you mentioned that you guys also offer insurance services. So I'm just curious in terms of like, how have you guys structured that? Is it where you guys have everything in-house, like from the underwriting and everything, or are you using the captive approach where you're using someone else to basically underwrite what you are offering? And then my last one relates to the what's this the current legislation that's I guess waiting to be approval around breaking up Eskom into 3 different components. With I guess it'll be the transmission where you guys will be able to, I guess, buy or power directly from solar providers through the wheeling arrangements. My question is like, how much, like how big do you think that legislation is, like from your point of view? That's my question.
Yeah, thank you. You asked 3 questions, so you are like 3 people in one, but I will quickly go through them. So why are the vehicles Chinese? If you look at battery technology right now, the Chinese are the ones that are way far ahead. Again, in May, when I was in China, we went to see with some representatives from South African government, by the way, because they also wanted to see what's going on there. We went to see a factory by CATL Cattle. Those are the guys that make the batteries for all the Teslas in China. So battery technology in China, way ahead. If you are looking for an electric vehicle, like I've said, they've already sold 40% of the vehicles they've sold in the first and second quarter in China are Chinese locally manufactured EVs. Also, if you look at the top 4 global manufacturers of electric vehicles, yes, right at the top is Tesla, because they were the first, to do this. But 2 of the top 4 are Chinese players, which is BYD and also our Psych Maxes, which is the vehicle that we've brought. So if you want a battery, I think it's safe to say the Chinese are right up there with the best. And then the fundraising, you were asking, do we follow a transactional capital approach? We had a very great strategy starting. We thought, firstly, we will put in our own funds, we will raise equity from whoever gets this idea, and then the first ones who will probably adopt this and fund probably the development finance institutions, and then probably the commercial banks will come along. We quickly learned that at times some of the commercial banks actually have better rates or concessionary funding more than even the development finance institutions, because there is a greater view or a greater push, even from their current clients, with things with ESG. And so a lot of the banks are creating products that help to fund transactions with a greener outlook. And so we are finding that if you had to compare interest rates between, back in the day, the DFIs would have been the cheapest, but we are sometimes even finding the banks being very competitive. So it is a lot of decision making in terms of, like I said, who is the strategic funder of something like this and who gets it. And then you were asking about Eskom and the wheeling agenda. That legislation, you said, you asked how big do I think it is. It is extremely big, because it is what is going to, one, green our grid, because then we will be having renewables, powering most of our grid. I think over time, I do agree with people that say we're not going to stop powering our grid from coal tomorrow. Yes, that is true, but we can definitely green the grid over time. And then the wheeling, I'm thinking about the likes of us. I mean, we would be an off-taker for renewable energy if we can wheel. But there's also other industries which are great, which are worried about their carbon emissions that would wheel electricity. So yeah, quite a big legislation that. I think the next one is Matume. Or Matume, have I taken your question, or is it Huselo?
I think you missed. I think you missed one with regards to the insurance offering. So I asked, like,
yes. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, so we've got an insurance player. They are gonna come out actually in the next 2 weeks. We were just looking at the press release. They're gonna come out publicly to say that the first to insure a commercial fleet. They've been our insurance partner from when we started. It was one of those which actually saw the gap and thought they want to be the first to insure, and they've been our partner. They are currently beating everyone if you had to go get a quote on insurance, and they're partner to us. So we don't have in-house insurance. No, we've made very sure that with all the components of our business, we partner with the best in the industry who know what they're doing, because we don't want to be all things to all people and put our hand in everything. But we've put together the solution and we've priced it right, and so we are able to still make a margin out of the solution put together. Thanks, Matume. I think I've answered all your questions now. Before the team starts to shout, because we are almost out of time and there's still 5 other
like something like a slight comment. I know you mentioned that your cars are like mini Vorpas.
Yeah.
and you can come through for a test drive. I know your offices are, so
yes, please.
so
Yes,
I'll definitely be
please
popping in, definitely.
Yeah, actually, guys, you can actually go into our website and book a test drive. So yeah, please do that, and I would be happy to personally take you there. Just say when you book a test drive, Ndia had a talk at Ndunamu. Please can I book a test drive, and I'll know to avail myself to take you. Costello, you're next.
Thank you. First of all, I'm impressed and I am quite happy to see another black woman being on the top of the mountain. Yeah. And then my question is around when you started the company, how long since you're on the lease, like the revenue model is the lease model, how long did it take you for actually to break even, and also just could have sufficient payback period so that you're actually able to actually grow the company to actually get more vehicles? Yeah. And yes. And then the second question is, yes,
Sure.
the second question is that I've noticed like most companies that they generate debt to the extent that they're no longer able to actually pay them back. So in the company, how are you actually being aware of to the limit of debt and also the equity, especially the equity, the private equity funders, that to the point that you are not able to actually pay them, and also maybe provide a return on the investment. Yeah. And also another thing is that I think in the next 5 years, you're going to have 130 customers from this class.
Oh, thank you. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Kuselo. Yeah, thanks for those words of encouragement. Definitely not on the mountain. It's a steep hill. We have just started really, but we have made progress, but we really dream of something even better. To your question about the debt and how we ensure that. Oh, firstly, you were asking about breaking even. So I think we have the advantage of being accountants. So if you had to look at our financial models, you will see we've got unit economics, we've got break-even points coming out of our ears, IRR. You know, we've got an IRL calculation that is running to see that we are at a specific IRR as we make the funding decisions and as we make all sorts of decisions in the business. So we are very, very aware that debt equity structure is something that we've predetermined, and we have said that we will only raise equity if we've got X amount of capital. So we've kept it up until now being a new entrant at like a 60-40 split, because we wanted to ensure that we've got we don't have debt sort of coming out of our ears and, like you're saying, unable to pay back the debt. But the other thing is this is an asset-backed business. So how we get into these funding discussions or contracts with our funders is that we say, give us a facility in which I will only draw down when I get vehicles leased. So I don't have a facility that just allows me to do all sorts of things that I want. If I bring you 10 vehicles from Kuselo fleet, then I can draw down only for those vehicles. And so that has kept us in check. We've been very, very much aware of that. And you're very right about private equity or the investors that have put in money. They have that eye on the IRR and on the on their return on equity. Return on equity is not, in my view and what I've seen, is not necessarily just something that you will see on paper. It is also the involvement of that funder, let's say, in your executive committees or even in your board. And so our funders are actively involved in our boards, in our MENCO, EXCOs, whatever. And they are, I wouldn't say they're part of day-to-day decision-making, but they're definitely looking after their interest. And that is actually another buffer, because as innovators, it is true, as much as we're accountants and we're careful, we can go quite crazy with the innovation, and we do need someone to say, hey, slow down, keep your eye on the price. So yeah, until now we've been above water. We are breaking even. We are washing our own face. It took a while. It took 18 months maybe to get to some sort of a break-even point. But at this point, we are washing our face. Ndisi, you're next. Please go ahead. Ndisi?
Can you hear me?
Yes, can hear you.
Good evening. Thanks for the inspiring story. This is really groundbreaking, and I'm inspired. But yeah, I'm gonna ask maybe a very short one. I'm interested in your pricing model. What do you consider? What do you put in there? Or maybe if I can ask for you to just give us an example of how much you charge some of your clients without telling us which ones, and all that. Thank you.
No, I did expect that question to come through. So I will give you how we've determined the price without giving you the number. As you can imagine, the sensitivity around that with our clients. But how I've said we bring in the vehicles. So there's the capital cost of the vehicle. Within the pricing, I must ensure that the cost of that vehicle is being unwound by the subscription that I'm getting, and on top of that I must make a margin, right? And if you're looking at the charging infrastructure, I said to you that we put down the infrastructure for our clients. There's a cost of the charging infrastructure. Let's say the charging infrastructure, it does cost. The DC fast charger will cost you something like 700,000 for one. That cost of that into the price, that the subscription price that my client pays. And for that, I want to make sure that we are paying back the capital for that charger, but we are also putting a margin on that. There's also the charging from electricity, the electricity fuel, so to speak. And so Eskom will charge me X number at, let's say they'll charge me 8 Rand per kilowatt hour. If it's in the afternoon, I'm going to sell that electricity at a very small markup to my client. And then, the price that I charge my client, the subscription price, will have baked in the cost of the vehicle and the charger and all the capital items that form part of the offering that I provide to my client. And within reason, I put on a markup for the service. So, and on top of that, they will pay for the services of the app, of the team that I have behind the app and behind the technology running the vehicles. So in a nutshell, that is like the high level I can give you. So for instance, if my price is 5,000 Rand per month, and that is just really an example, in there will be all the costs, and maybe the costs will come up to X amount, and then there will be, I bake in my margin on top. Thank you, Michelle. Michelle, it's your turn.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, maybe you have mentioned it before. I joined in a little bit late. But I wanted to ask about this whole funding thing. Did you look for funding when it was an idea, or when you had already something on the ground? Because usually what we see maybe on Shark Tank, you usually go with something that's already up and running. You have actual numbers, actual sales volumes to see. And then from experience from Zim, you realize that most funders or investors, they're not willing to fund an idea.
Yeah.
It has to be maybe a business that needs assistance in terms of capital, etc. But from what I'm reading from this kind of project, it's quite capital intensive.
Yeah.
And yeah, to have even one vehicle, I think maybe it's costly from my
It
thoughts.
is
I don't know on your
extremely
end.
costly. Yeah.
So how were you really convincing to the investors? Say you went with an idea and not a project that's already up and running.
Yeah. So yes, it was an idea, but it was not a pre-feasibility if we had to put it in project terms. You are very right, Michelle. I'm assuming, are you a banker by any chance?
No, I'm not.
Okay. So you really are thinking about it the right way. It is very hard to go and raise funding on an idea. But we went to the funders when we had done a couple of things. Firstly, we had put in our own money in our own capital, being it sweat capital. Yes, there was a bit of sweat capital in there, but actually our own pennies from our savings, which were not a lot. So don't even think that I'm talking about millions of rands. But when we went to the funders, we had the idea, yes. But by that time, we had already been to China to talk to the supplier of the vehicles. We had we had sold them without even knowing where the money was going to come from. We had made ourselves known and our intention. They had already agreed that they were going to sell us 5 vehicles before we even raised the funding. Secondly, before we went to the funder, we had already signed up 3 clients who were going to run a proof of concept with us. And so when we went to funders, we said, right, we've got DSV that's going to run a proof of concept. We've got the other one that I said will be coming out publicly in the next couple of weeks. And we've got another one, all blue chip suppliers. Those ones we sold to these, customers. We sold to these customers really from a PowerPoint presentation. And it wasn't once, it was, I remember Woolworths, it must have taken at least 8 to 10 months for us to get a yes from them that, okay, we will do a POC with them. So it was a function of having done the groundwork. So when we were going to the funder, we're saying we've lined up all of these things. All we need is your cash. I'm not saying funder, I'm looking for cash from you for me to fly to China to start talking to investors, to suppliers. I've already done that. I'm not saying I'm still going to look for clients when I come back. They were willing to even give us letters of intent to say, if you brought these vehicles, we would take 2. So because of that, I don't know if you were here when I spoke about the fact that I stopped counting at 25 no's, because there were a lot of funders that we spoke to that didn't buy into the vision, or they thought it was too early, or they said, to your point about people, funders really want to fund something that is up and running. People who said, but maybe go and run your 5 and come to us on commercial scaling. But eventually, with that patience and going back and talking to different people, we finally got the first seed funder. And in my view, that is the funder that actually opened this for us, because then we could run the proof of concept. And now the discussions with funders is more like, but I've got an order for 50 and I've got a 5-year contract, please back me. It's no longer, I have nothing on the road, I'm a hustler. Itai?
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. I promise, Rendani, I'll be done in 5 minutes.
Hi.
Hi.
Just a quick one. Just looking at the vehicles that you guys have, the electronic vehicles, and looking at the nature of this African government, ETC, going back, I think, years and years, these guys have relied solely on vehicles like BMW or Mercedes. Would your company be able to provide something like that for like the government if they needed that? And secondly, would you be able to armor these vehicles, because certain ministers, based on their protocols, need to have bulletproof vehicles? And what impact would that have on the vehicles, that the vehicle torque and range, etc.? Have you factored that?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So I really hope that one day you can really come and test drive some of these vehicles. These are just vehicles, they look exactly like your normal vehicle, except that they are electric. And if you're talking about the spec that, let's say, your high-level government officials would be looking at, look at the BMWs, for instance, the iX, I think it's called the iX7. That's like a 7 Series, which is an EV. Yes. So the spec, those vehicles already exist in the kind of specs that you're talking about. But also remember, the electric value proposition is any vehicle can be rolled onto the network. So whether it's an iX something or it's an Audi, or even if it's a Chinese vehicle, they can, so whoever wants to be our client on our network, roaming on our network, is spoiled for choice in terms of what vehicle they can have. It can be any vehicle of their choice. But I want to repeat that in terms of battery technology, these Chinese vehicles, we have really seen that some of them do stack up, and the quality is really good. Thanks for that question.
Oh, sorry, just one last thing. Sorry, just now that you've got your own grid, your own network, etc., would you not being feasible or profitable to work with someone like Car Grid, and your vehicles can also charge off their, what you call it, off their systems? Because I think they've got about 350 charging ports, chargers, and then you add on to them. Before you know it, the whole of South Africa will probably be on it. I know one car company actually went from Cape Town all the way to Zim, all the way to
the rest of Africa.
Yeah, and came back using that Car Grid network. So
we do. We do work with them. So we are in agreement with all the charger providers in South Africa. So what we say is you use our charging infrastructure as far as the client can, but you might have missed it when I said that if my driver needs to do a top up or needs to charge in an area where I don't have a charger, then I am in agreement with the local or the current players in the charging infrastructure game. So my vehicles can charge on any of the 300 chargers that are available in South Africa. And my client doesn't even need to know what's the arrangement between me and that person. So if you roam on my network, if you need to charge, you will be charged, whether it's on my charger or if it's on another person's charger. So again, think about the cell phone analogy. At times, if you're driving around, even if you're a Vodacom user, you might be on an MTN tower, for instance. It doesn't. You never know whose tower you are roaming on, but you just know that you've got network. That's exactly how we are viewing this thing. Thanks for that question. It's a good one. Tami, you're the last person. Tami, please go ahead.
Sorry, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so I was saying thank you for the detailed presentation. So I was just wondering, like me being an accountant, like a trainee accountant, I was just trying to think about your model and the implications on the accounting reporting framework. How are your contracts with the customers structured? Because ordinarily you're offering electric vehicles as a service. So I'm not too sure, do you apply IFRS 15, but they also look like leases. So do you apply IFRS 16? Because I'm based in the UK, and I also have a client which has almost similar model with what you guys are offering. And they were saying because our contracts with the customers are not attached to a specific vehicle, but just to the company to then say, I can come up today and then I say I want a 1-ton truck like the ones that you're offering, and maybe 3-4 months down the line, I then decide the 1-ton truck maybe is not longer sufficient for what I want to transport. So maybe I now want a 5-ton truck. So are your arrangements confined to a specific type of motor vehicle to then say, if I want to apply IFRS 16, I'll definitely have an identifiable asset, or you can change the motor vehicles as you want. Like you indicated that next week you're going to have a new range. So if Woolworths then comes, then says we want this motor vehicle for our CEO or wherever, are your contracts attached to the company to then say any vehicle that you want for the next 3 years, it's fine, or it's specifically to an identifiable truck?
Yes,
I don't know if you get my question.
Yes, I do. I'll answer some of it and then I will leave the technical parts to Rendani and team because I introduced myself as a recovered accountant because the last time I saw IFRIS was many years ago. But so we've got an MSA, so the main contract, the main service agreement that we have, and then we've got annexures. So it's not an identifiable asset. So my contract doesn't say I'm leasing you an e-Deliver 3, for instance. It says vehicles, and then I attach annexures to the contract as and when you want different ranges of vehicles. So the same client can come and say, today is the e-Deliver 3, next week you can buy the sedan for your CEO, and it will still be the same contract, but it will have annexures, and those annexures will identify the vehicle and it will identify the pricing, but the underlying contract remains the same. You get that?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
Yeah. So Rendani, I think maybe in the feedback session on the case, you can maybe talk about what standards we apply. And actually, that is one of the things that I did ask the team to sort of help us with, because I think we just want to ensure that we are, dotting our I's and crossing our T's in terms of accounting reporting. Thanks for that question. Mpho?
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Well done on your business. I like it.
Thank you.
My issue with cars is you can own any kind of world as long as there is a mechanic that can repair it.
Very good one. Yeah.
So then with regards to your infrastructure, how well are you training your mechanics? Where do they come from? And how are you deploying them? What's the pipeline on that? Right, type of things, like how do you satisfy your clients that there will be mechanics that will repair these cars?
Yeah.
And then are electricity prices regulated by NERSA? Because my understanding is that you can't just charge a price for electricity to other people. My understanding is that it needs to go through NERSA. Is that the case with you? And I think let me stop there. There's too many. Just on those two.
Thank you. Those are very good questions. So currently the skills, high voltage technicians, maintenance of chargers and all of those things, they are really lacking in South Africa. So at the start, we had to poach from the current OEMs that are currently running electric vehicles. That's how it works out there. You get people who've been running it with the experience. But now we do have an EV center of excellence based in Menlyn, where we've got service stations and we are on a rotational basis training high voltage technicians and also taking them through the manuals of the manufacturer and things like that. And then shortly they will also be traveling to China to be taught how to really look after the vehicle. So when we were still running a proof of concept, we used to outsource the servicing of these vehicles to any high voltage engineer. You find them, some of them are just like working on a freelance basis. But now we are training our internal skills because we understand that this is something that is needed for the country, but definitely needed for us as we grow. So that also gives our clients comfort that if their vehicle breaks down, there is support in country that can help them. Another thing is we've got the full support of the OEM in China, because you can imagine we're now rolling out commercially, so they had to support us. We have warranties and all of those great things. But I think just remember, even when you're asking that question, that an electric vehicle is very different from an internal combustion engine. It's a lot less parts. it's not, when we talk about servicing, we're not talking about, thousands of moving parts. All we do in a maintenance of an electric vehicle, every 30,000 Ks, they call it a major service, but actually what you get rid of is 1 liter of diff oil. You top up a window washer. You run diagnostics on your battery and all the systems in the car. The laptop tells you fix this error and fix that error. It is a 2-hour, even less exercise as opposed to, entire oil change and all of those things. The brakes, I mean, at some point we had a vehicle that had done 100,000 Ks, and the brakes were as good as new because they've got regenerative braking and all of that. But I mean, that was just by the way. The point is there is support in country for this. To your question about electricity and whether it is regulated, remember, I charge, I provide my electricity to my client at cost, at whatever cost that NESA has approved for that grid where I am. What I charge on top of that is for the charger, the capital asset, and the service of using that charger. And so, and remember also, you can, when you look at the offering, so if I gave the example of 5,000 Rand a month, that is all in, including electricity. So my client can tell you that because we've got meters, I've used X number of kilowatt hours, but it's not to say that they will say, I was charged a markup on the electricity, because actually I don't. I charge you a markup just for the usage of my charger, and obviously, for the interest that I'm paying to the bank for that charger, I top that up to give you the service.
Awesome, thank you.
Thank you so much. I think we are done. Oh, that was quite a lot of questions. Thank you for them. Rendani, I'm done from my side. Thank you so much, guys, for listening to me for this long.
Indeed, we are done. Thank you.
We are done and finished.
Thank you so much for coming through and for the session and really unpacking it. So the candidates are still going to sit for another case study based on the same background. So I'm sure now the quality and the understanding will be much more impressive. I think, yeah, what you shared was quite insightful. And I think from my side also, I got to learn a bit more about how the business actually works. So thank you so much for that. And thank you everyone for the engagements. But I think we'll leave it there for tonight. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Everyone.